Hi, I'm your host, Rick Sessinghouse, and excited to launch Flow Golf Podcast. Each episode, we will share stories, interview experts, and share cutting-edge strategies for peak performance. Here's my co-host, Hallam Morgan, to explain more about Flow Code Golf.
Thanks, Rick. Flow Code Golf is a framework of strategies, principles, and techniques that take us from fear to the state of flow, the state of optimal performance, and the zone where we play our best golf. You can find out more about Flow Code Golf at www.flowcode.golf. And I just want to finish up by saying this podcast is as much your podcast as it is ours. So please ask questions, provide feedback, and get engaged. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Cedric, thank you so much for joining us on the Flow Golf podcast. This obviously is a special episode. We're so excited to have you on here. I just want to give an introduction for all the listeners. Obviously, we're going to dive into your story, your journey, your lessons, your experiences. But obviously, you're a skydiver, base jumper, wingsuit pilot, author. You graduated in high performance psychology. There's a long, long list of things there. And not to forget, you also play some golf. And I believe you claimed a spot in the Belgium national team, which is incredible as well. So there's going to be some great stories there, great experiences. We'll talk in depth about your career, including the research that you've done into fear, flow, and many, many more things. So what I want to start with, Cedric, if that's okay, is start actually with a bit around your book. Obviously, you provide inside your book 3 different power skills. So I just wanted to ask about those power skills and then for you to define them and then how you feel they can be trained, because I know we're going to dive into conversation about growth mindset. I know that you believe that anything can be trained. So I would imagine that those 3 power skills you would say can be trained in many different ways. So we have the limitless mindset, we have the laser focus, and then we also have obviously creating trust. So what do they mean to you? And then how do you feel they could be trained?
Well, yeah, I think I'm convinced it can be trained, but it's, I always tell people it's very easy to understand. I think even a child of 8, 7 can understand, but it's very hard to apply. And that's the whole thing about, I think, applied sports psychology and mental training, mental strength, even emotional well-being and emotional intelligence. We know the path, but we're not walking the path. So I think it takes a lot of, and my starting point is always the same, and it's not my starting point. I would say it's the starting point. It's all about self-awareness. I think you can train everything if you are curious enough, if you are open, if you are optimistic, if you believe in something, and so on. Of course, you can train your mindset, and your mindset. We all know that it's going to define success or failure, and it's very easy to explain. I think anyone can understand that, but it's not very tangible. You know, if you train for a marathon, or if you're gonna hit 1,000 balls, it's very tangible. You know, you have to run 10K, 20K, 30K, and then at one point you're gonna run 40K. Technically, very easy to understand. If you want to be good at something, golf, for example, you're gonna hit balls and you're gonna train, but it's not enough. I speak from experience, but it's neuroplasticity. Your brain is not a muscle, but you have to look at it as a muscle. And I think the more intention you put into, and the more self-awareness you create, it can be very confronting sometimes, but then that's the beginning.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, I love that. I think self-awareness is obviously so important. We speak so much about goals. Rick reinforces the importance of goals. You have to set them because that determines the process. But ultimately, we also need to know our current location. We need to know where we are right now in order to map that route between where we are and where we want to go. So that's really, really key. Love that.
Yeah. Sorry. For me, it's all about being bold enough to ask yourself the right questions. Do you have the courage to identify your strength? It's easier than your weaknesses, or I would say areas of development. And I think most importantly, and I think it applies to everyone, whether it's elite sport or corporate, what is distracting me from reaching my goals? And that's
right.
And a lot of time we all have distractions, which is very human, but a lot of time they control us and we're not controlling them.
Sure. And
So,
with focus, we have distractions is, paying attention to something that's irrelevant in the moment. Is focus, to me, I believe, is definitely a trainable skill. Okay. Now I get to the point where, and I've never done this, so please, you're doing a base jump to where the risk and everything in that moment should, maybe doesn't always, funnel attention to the present moment. Golf being a slower moving sport, and we still want to funnel the attention to the present moment, and we go back to trainability. What do you do off the golf course, off the base jumping, that would be trainable for focus?
well, you can explain it in different ways. Let me go back to the beginning.
Yes.
I started playing golf when I was 9 in Florida. Actually, I was at Disney World with my dad, and my parents weren't playing, but my dad had a lunch in a golf resort, and I went to the pro shop, and the guy gave me a club and a few balls, and that's where it all started. What I want to say with this is that when, as a kid, I don't think I was, and back then there was not a lot of talk about that, especially in my environment, I was not mentally strong. So one more proof that it's something you can really train and learn. Right. I was not born mentally strong. I was emotionally not great. I was technically average, but because I started playing when I was 9, I was good, but not good enough. That's why I had to do crazy things afterwards. No, what I mean with this, in golf and like most of sports, you have a choice. You can either be focused or not. In a high-risk environment, and especially in my discipline, there is no choice. You have to be focused in order to minimize the risks and maximize your success. And it's a question literally of life and death.
Right.
So you have to be on it. So I think I've learned it, and that's my point here. I had to learn it. I had to be focused. I had no choice. There's not an option. Today I'm not focused, I'm going to multitask, and I'm not in the moment. No, you have to be. In golf, you can be mentally fatigued. I see this a lot, not talking about me, but if you're not physically on top, after 12, 13 holes, you get exhausted, you know it better than me, and then the mental starts following your physique.
Sure.
And then you're out of focus, and you lose it anyway. It's something, yes, it's something you can train, but in an extreme environment, it's something you have to have.
Right. Yeah. And I'm always looking for what triggers focus, right? And I understand risk in that moment is it makes you pay attention, right? Golf being a little more slow moving, there could be risk on a shot over water, yet, Hallam and I are always talking about something that's consistent in a routine that would bring attention to the present moment. And, using that, what do you use now on the golf course to, I'm not going to say it's life or death. I don't know if we're going to put that frame on it, sometimes, right? No. But when you are playing your best golf and you're focused, and we could say it's a choice. I get that. I just believe that people have defaults, and they have under certain environments that distractions may interfere more often than others. We always talk about a pre-shot routine, right? A pre-shot routine is supposed to funnel that focus into the present moment. Is there anything that you've taken from the action sports that we would say focus into a pre-shot routine for golf?
Yes, because it's very comparable. I have a pre-jump routine, and I'm using it all the time to go into what we call the zone or the flow. So it's like unconscious awareness, hyper awareness. And it's going to bring me, like you say, it's going to funnel you to the present moment, because we can talk for hours about focus, performance, neurochemistry, flow, and so on, and we can make it highly complicated, or you can bring it to a very simple basic idea of high performance and consciousness and self-awareness and creativity and making the right decisions happen in the present moment. So for me, it comes down to a very simple idea of how can I go, and then how can I stay in the present moment, knowing that there are maybe 6-7 minutes between each shot where my mind can wander and go everywhere.
Right.
And before I'm gonna leap off a cliff with a wingsuit, my mind can go anywhere as well. But again, I don't have a choice. I have to minimize the risk. So I'm gonna do everything. It's a mind game, and golf.
Yeah. Yes.
And when I tell people I play golf, come on, you play golf. It has nothing to do with what you do. No, it has everything to do, because it's a mind game. The risks are different, but it's a mind game, and that's why I think I love it. I'm obsessed, because it's all about filling your brain with positive thoughts and emotions, and emptying your brain with what can be negative and prevent you from playing your best.
Absolutely. Cedric, you, in a golf sense, obviously what people are worried about, their fear of failure, almost failing on that specific shot, or fear of what could go wrong, essentially. From your perspective, it's fear of death, I guess, because it's that extreme. It gets to a point where you're sat there and it's ultimately fear of death. So I've heard you say in multiple other podcasts, on your TED Talk, I think, that a lot of people think that you wouldn't fear death. You don't fear death, but actually you do. You do still fear death. But I guess, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but you kind of feel the fear and you move through the fear to find that flow state. So my question would be, how can golfers apply that to their pre-shot routine? How can they apply that to their fear of failure? It's not the extremity that it is in your side, in your sport, but it's still the same process they need to go through. They need to recognize the fear, feel the fear, but actually utilize that to push them forward and move them into a state of flow.
Yes, that's exactly. Well, yeah, I totally agree. But I think, and it's very connected with, I think, life in general. And when you look at people who are excelling, who are taking risks, who are willing to push the limits in anything, not only in my discipline, can be in business, can be in elite sports, they are accepting failure. They are even embracing failure, and they look at it, and that's very American. And that's why I really love the culture of entrepreneurship, the competitive culture of the US. You embrace failure. If you look for investments in Europe and you failed, they're going to tell you, go back home, you failed. If you look for investment in the US and you haven't failed, they're going to tell you, go back and fail 5 times and then you come back, because that's going to be interesting. So it's all about, and you've heard it before, I'm not going to, I've heard it from many players, but it's all about accepting your mishits, which I still have a hard time doing.
We'll work on a post-shot routine with you, Cedric. We'll get you.
Please.
We'll get you
No. I'm joking, but of course I've learned a lot from my my job, my main discipline, that I'm bringing back into my golf game. Right. This said, I think if you don't have the right technique, if you don't have the right physique, you can be mentally as strong. You're not going to go where you want to go. So you need foundation. I know that I lack some technique, and I can be as positive, optimistic in the present moment, name it. If I don't have the right technique, and I'm not able to repeat, I don't have to tell you that, but to repeat the same golf swing every time, I'm gonna miss some. But to go back to your question, Halam, I think it's about being able to accept failure. And what I really like is to detach myself from a final outcome. I've heard many players saying, if you don't think about the 18th hole, you think about every shot, next shot, next shot, and at one point, it's gonna bring you to a win. You probably have seen the last 2 holes of Victor Hovland in Dubai.
Yes.
Well, everything is said. He was a bit behind, and then bam, he's playing shot by shot, and he was there. Amazing. He gave me goosebumps.
Cedric, one of the biggest things that I think so many golfers struggle with is their commitment level when they're about to execute on the shot. And from your perspective, again, when you're jumping out of planes, when you're getting to a point where you're going to do a base jump off buildings, various bits, your commitment level, I mean, it has to be the ultimate commitment as you jump. I've heard you say again that you sometimes take a step back and you don't jump under any circumstances unless you have 100% commitment. So I guess my question is, how do you create that 100% commitment? And is there anything that golfers can utilize to apply to pre-shot routines to create that same level?
There are many factors. Of course, being well prepared, being focused, as we said, having the right pre-shot routine that fits you best, having self-confidence. I work a lot with intuition. I think it's something you can really work on. Your internal dialogue, you visualize everything. There are many tools, there are many techniques, but at one point, and that's all about basically jumping or hitting a ball or making these shots, I think you have to let go the need of controlling everything. Because if you resume, what is flow? For me, flow is being fully immersed in what you do, being fully absorbed in your action, and at the same time letting go of everything. It's thinking without thinking. Like there are many books on, there are a few good books on that, but at one point you're not, it's unconscious competence, you know, the 4 levels of
Exactly.
And you just go for it, and whatever happened, I really like the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Because it's all about having the right focus, and it's all about detaching yourself from this, I want to be perfect, I need to be certain of the final outcome. No, just do it. And in the action, you will discover that it's going well, not going well, whatever. I mean, look on the tour, they don't win every weekend.
Right.
Somebody, I mean, you have probably, you know it better than me, but you have 100 guys who have potential to win.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, some of the best win rates are kind of like 9%, and you're one of the best to ever play the game. So, I mean, immediately those figures, they tell the tale. So.
Yeah, I want to tap into something, a word that we threw around just a little bit is curiosity. I know in my life, curiosity is a main flow trigger. It gets me very interested in the present moment because I'm interested in it. What I'm referencing in this case is, you know, working with Colin Morikawa from an early age, I believe curiosity was one of his biggest strengths. I believe he was always wanting to learn, asking good questions, willing to make mistakes, getting an immediate feedback loop to say, hey, I want to make this change. And it wasn't, you know, I'm a failure. It was, oh, that didn't work, and moving from there. You know, I've heard that curiosity was built in a little bit with you, with your parents, as you learned things. And to me, it opens up people to try things. I would love your feedback on how we can use curiosity in our mindset training and obviously with golf.
Well, you can define curiosity in many ways, but I think it's, for me, I would define it as keeping your whole life a student mindset. Being open for new, even if I see someone who is maybe not as good or has less experience, I'm still gonna be very open. Oh yeah, you show me. I would be glad to learn something. And I think it's being open for change, as simple as that, and being open for new techniques, questioning yourself, acquiring new skills all the time. It's being a student all your life. It's not because you finish high school or university that's okay, I'm done, I'm gonna have a job and I'm okay. I think complacency is lethal. Complacency in my environment is literally lethal. In a corporate environment or elite sport, it's the fastest way to obsolescence. So I use this idea all the time, especially when I have a corporate speaking engagement. Is curiosity, of course, is leading you to learn new skills, and these new skills are going to make you better, and you're going to grow as a human being, whether it's in a golf environment, whether it's in your job, as a father, as a partner, whatever. For me, I have a very global approach. I have a very holistic approach of everything. If you can apply it to golf, you can apply it to your life. Golf is a life lesson. We all know that, because it's life. And I think,
And I love what you said, is that it certainly can be about an outcome. We want to get better at something, shoot lower scores. Yet I like the holistic idea that this curiosity is going to make me grow as a person, which now helps me as a parent and a spouse and so on and so forth. And I think that's where a lot of golfers, we work with a lot of competitive golfers that are just locked into score as their identity. It's only about the result. It's short-term fixes to get to there. And I think curiosity, like you said, kind of, it broadens this, that maybe I have to look under that rock and that's going to help. Maybe and be aware and be vulnerable and understand your weaknesses and all that stuff. So curiosity to me is learning, but I think there's that other element of it's okay to admit you're not good at everything. And some people want to protect their identity so much, like, I don't want to admit I'm bad at this. And I think that's a detriment. How do you, and I know that's part of growth mindset, fixed mindset stuff, but you said it perfect, is you can still tie in curiosity to an end goal, which some people are very driven by that end goal. And yet still teaching them that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to make mistakes. But I want to know about, how do you do that in the event action of sports arena? When you do make a mistake, you get hurt. I mean, to me, there's a fine line of, I could be curious and creative, but I got to prove concept here pretty quick.
Let me start by, I think it's a, for me, it has to do with ego. It has to do with the fear of being judged.
Yeah,
it's the fear of losing your reputation. And I see this every day in any type of organization or any type of environment. People don't like to be judged. We don't like to be judged. So we want to appear strong and good at everything. And I think there is, for me, the future of a lot of things. It's about curiosity, but it's also about humility. And there is a very fine line between self-confidence, which is great and you need it, and arrogance. And I always tell people, don't go there. And to go back to my environment, where you have a lot at stake, like high consequences, I've seen many people get hurt or even dying because they were arrogant. They thought they knew everything. They thought they were the man and invincible. And it's very easy to go there. Believe me, it's very easy. At one point, you have a few seasons behind you. You're the man. You have kind of a status in the community, and nothing can happen. I know everything. Big mistake. I have a friend who is a instructor in the Belgian Air Force. Yeah, we have an Air Force in Belgium. I see you smiling, but no. That was a bad joke. Anyway, but we have F-16s from the 70s. But anyway, when he has a student who is ready to fly on a fighter jet, the first thing he tells them is, the day you think you're a great pilot is the day it becomes very dangerous. So stay in my environment. I like to tell people, if you want to make a long career, stay below your skills.
Interesting.
So, and I don't know if it's comparable with golf. You don't want to stay below your skills, but what I mean is, know where you are, and there's always talk about the comfort zone. And for me, outside of the comfort zone, it's not an in-comfort zone, it's a learning zone. And if you go outside of the learning zone, you go in the red zone. And the red zone for me, it's arrogance, lack of humility, fixed mindset. So there is a good balance between the comfort zone and the red zone. You want to be in the learning zone all the time. That's the student mindset.
Definitely. Cedric, I would say you've probably been able to stay in that learning zone because of the number of times you've reinvented yourself. So you've moved into, obviously, you're an author. You've moved into keynote speaking. You've moved into performance psychology. You've moved into so many different arenas that you've almost had to start each journey again. You've had to start from the bottom so many times and work your way back up. So has that kept your ego low when you go back into some of these extreme sports, into some of the stuff that, well, you don't have a high ego, basically?
I don't think I had to start from the bottom, because I didn't make it in golf as I wished I had, yeah. But I took so many skills with me that I learned when I was a teenager, like focus, discipline, training, waking up early to do something, and name it, simple stuff, but you take all your life with you, and that you can, again, you can apply this to everything. And I'm coming back on curiosity. If you stay curious, you can learn anything.
Love that.
Everything I've done in my life was never planned. It's very funny, but it was never planned, and I've always looked unconsciously, and I've always embraced uncertainty. A lot of people, and it's very human, we look at uncertainty as an issue. So we don't go we don't chase our dream because it's not certain. Where am I going to go? You know, I think giving up on looking for certainty is the best way to give up on your dreams. So for me, uncertainty has always been a way to stay relevant, to reinvent myself unconsciously, but a little bit consciously as well, and to stay curious. And I'm repeating myself maybe, but I think curiosity is, and I'm not saying it's the main thing, but it's
definitely something you hear is a consistent skill, and I would call it a skill or a focus in all top performers. I even remember hearing a story of Kobe Bryant, and apparently he was like a serial cold caller. So he would call like Ariana Huffington, founder of the Huffington Post, and he would ask her about different leadership concepts and bits like that. And people were like, why are you calling Ariana Huffington? You're a basketball player. And he says, because there's so much that I can learn from her and how I apply that to my teammates on the basketball court. He spoke about learning from the environment, learning from nature and all sorts. So that curiosity, and I think the open-mindedness to be not just curious in your field, but to be curious outside of your field. And that's one of the reasons we've brought you on, Cedric, because we know, for all of our listeners, that there's so much value and information that they can take from your life, your experiences, that they can apply in their journeys through golf as well. So I think that's so important. It's not just curiosity in your given field, but go external and find new sources.
Yeah, I think it's about staying relevant and also being able to have a certain continuity in your career. And at one point, especially when you take a lot of risks, you have a lot of rewards, but the whole reward thing, it's neurochemistry is decreasing after a while, but the risks are not decreasing. So you have to look always, I think, for a different way to enjoy what you do, to have satisfaction in a way. It's simple, but it's the truth.
Right. No, I know, Hallam, you had a question actually more about the neurochemistry and about, when you get the dopamine hits and everything like that. And so Hallam, I want you to kind of.
No, of course. So I listen to quite a lot of Andrew Huberman. I know you obviously you'll know him. You'll have heard his stuff. I'm sure you've had maybe some interaction with him. I know Rick has through obviously the Flow Research Collective. But he speaks, and it was on a recent podcast with Tom Bilyeu actually, he spoke a lot about essentially the impact of not having a dopamine balance and the impact that sometimes this imbalance of dopamine can have on people that do extreme sports. So people that jump out of planes, people that do the things you do, it can actually have a massive impact on their general life because they're never going to get the same dopamine hit in any part of their life as what they do when they jump out of a plane. So it can actually lead to huge amounts of depression, huge amounts of anxiety, huge amounts of tough times in their life because they just can't find the same thing. So I kind of wanted to ask that question. And have you ever noticed that throughout your career? And how do you manage that dopamine balance? How do you ensure that you're not just constantly craving that next jump, that next extreme sport, basically?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've been through there. I still am, I think, sometimes when I get bored, when I don't have this release of dopamine, serotonin, endorphin, all these what we call performance enhancing substances, I feel like it's gonna sound hard, but I feel sometimes that my life has no sense. So I think I'm very addicted. On the other hand, I have a family since 10 years now, so I had to really minimize even more the risks because you want to see your kids growing up. Okay, you can die from anything. I have people telling me, hey, you're gonna die. Yeah, we all gonna die. That's the truth, and it's not because I would quit completely. I do it in a different way. You can ride a bike at 150 miles every day on the highway, and you can ride your bike in a more anticipative manner. And okay, it's the same for us. But it's not because I've been asking myself this question a lot. It's not because I quit that it's a guarantee that I'm gonna be healthy till 95. And at one point I want to transmit my commitment to my kids as well. So that's who I am. But okay, it's a long discussion. But yes, I'm very addicted to, and believe it or not, I think I can find it in other stuff. In golf, and I see you smiling, and when I try to explain this to people, it's like yeah, sure. No, when I play a good round, when I have a huge satisfaction. Definitely. And I have no risk, more or less. So I'm trying to have, when I speak in front of people and I can inspire and have an impact on people, it's a huge satisfaction. It's like a performance. Right. So I've been trying to, to find this rush, if you want to call it like this, in different activities. Absolutely. But sometimes I crave it, and I need to do this. It's weird, but yes.
It's really interesting because he talks about one of the most important skills for our generation with our phones, with all of these different things. I mean, that's the surface level compared to what you do, but he says one of the most important skills will be dopamine regulation. So being able to self-regulate your dopamine release. Because at the moment, it's not in our control. It's external to our control. You've got all of these large social media companies that ultimately are regulating our dopamine. And for us to be able to self-regulate that is really important. I guess that's what you're talking about there. You're learning to regulate your dopamine by finding benefit and finding enjoyment and satisfaction in all these different areas that aren't quite the same, but they're still giving you the similar kind of response to jumping out of planes and jumping off buildings and bits like that. Interesting.
Yes, yes, and I have a lot of joy with my family, and when I see my son surfing or playing golf, uh, it gives a lot of satisfaction as well. So you're growing as a human being, but it's still, I don't think I could quit.
Yeah.
And it sounds a bit like a drug addiction, like I'm not ready to quit.
Cedric, would you let your son, or he may already have, but would you let your son do some skydiving and base jumping? And
Well, I didn't ask permission at my parents. I just did it. I would never push him. I'd rather go and play 9 holes with him, which I do almost every weekend. I think but I would never push him into, no, it has to be very emerging, and he would have to ask me and almost beg me for showing him. I've never brought him to anything, and he sees it on YouTube. He sees it on his friends. Oh, your dad is base jumping. He's got a Red Bull hat and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, fine. But I'm still his dad. He sees me as a very normal human being. We go surfing together. We play golf together, and that's fine.
Love that.
Yeah. Along those lines, so as coaches, we get parents who are they get their kids into golf. The kid likes it, but then the parent says, "Oh, you need to play in tournaments or something like that." And I think they lose the intrinsic reasons of why they're playing in the first place. And I think it's something that I want to hear from your perspective on this, is the loss of the passion and the love for why they played it in the first place gets forced with competition, and here in the States, scholarships for college and stuff like that. Is part of curiosity to me is always learning that internal drive keeps getting fed, right? But a lot of people now at an early age, I'm talking 12, 13, their goals and their attention becomes just extrinsic based.
Yeah.
Give me your idea on motivation and the kind of the intrinsic extrinsic idea.
I think it's for me, it's really going back to basics. It's remembering for yourself, why did you start the sport? And it's all about having the right purpose. It's also what I call a purpose-driven mindset. It's basically the why. And I think in difficult times, when you have a difficult moment in your career as a golf player or any person, go back to why did I start? Why do I do this? And why did I start? And go back. There's a very nice story about Pelé, the soccer player, Brazilian, but
Sure.
Before every big game, he was really visualizing his childhood and really going back to, he was visualizing himself playing football on the beach in Brazil with friends, and basically going really back to the love of the sport. And that was a great way and that was part of his pre-game routine, but it was a great way for him, and I think for anyone, to basically feel like, I love what I do and I know what I'm doing. And I think if everyone in every organization worldwide would think like this, the world would be a much better place. But there is only, I think, sustainable engagement and sustainable motivation if you have, like you said, an intrinsic reason to do what you, to do and do what you do and train, and you have to go back to the passion and the love, and it's something I see with, and you see it as well, but with young athletes that get lost really quickly because of the pressure. It's funny, sometimes parents in any type of sport, hey, my kid is 15 or my kid is 12 and he's very talented in soccer, golf, whatever, and he needs a mental coach because and what I'm saying most of the time is, no, your kid doesn't need a mental coach. You need a mental coach.
How true.
Yeah, because they put so much pressure, and I know it's hard to keep the balance between being a dad and being a coach, or because it's very hard. I see it with my son to have the right balance between not pushing, but at the same time you want to stimulate their talent, and there's a very thin line, you know.
Oh, exactly.
But I see a lot of parents, and I think we all know that they project themselves into their kid's career. I haven't made it. I love the sport. I want to see my kid being the best in the world. And the kid has no goal whatsoever, doesn't. And you basically make a very frustrated young adult.
That's a great point. And I hope everybody hears that over and over again, because it can, in the short term, you can put pressure on a kid and he can start to play a little bit better, but it's not sustainable. They get their independence when they're in college and they say, I'm done. And now we have somebody who no longer plays golf. That's a whole other story. But like you just mentioned, a frustrated young man or young woman who it's like they never got to do what they love to do, and forced on that end. I want to turn a little bit more to the golf end, because I'm fascinated with what you've learned and how do we apply it on the golf course, because sometimes these fears that we have on the golf course are certainly made up in our mind, and sometimes they're overblown. Me hitting it into the water is obviously something I don't want to do, but when we magnify it so much that it's my identity and I'm embarrassing myself and what are people going to think about it, right? They've now taken what is, okay, I've lost a ball at a penalty, that's the reality, and they blow it out of proportion. I'm always fascinated with, Hallam and I talk a lot about cognitive reframing. How can we look at something different? I think people are already projecting that they're going to hit a bad shot, and then that emotional response is there before they even hit it. We talk about fear a lot, but isn't it interesting that in golf, we're just, we lose a little white ball and it's like the end of the world? I mean, how do you view golf when you have a challenging shot and there's potential of consequences and all that stuff? How do you view it?
Well, it depends. And it's interesting because if you play alone, you don't give a shit. If you play with people that have never seen you playing before, it's like a whole drama, because what are they going to think? It's yeah. If you play with friends and they've seen you playing really well, sometimes sure, it's okay. It's acceptable. So what I mean here is that everything we do in life is systemic. It's towards others. And it's part of the emotional well-being. We need recognition. We need status. We need this. That's very normal. So that's already one difference. And then how you want to maximize the success and minimize the fear and the fear of failure. Well, there are many techniques, and we've been talking already about a few. I think for me, one of the main technique I'm using, whether in my environment or in life in general and golf, is my internal dialogue. How am I talking to myself? And we have a tendency, and it's again a lack of self-awareness. We're being very hard on ourselves. And I see this, and you know it better than me, but a professional or even a good golf player, you miss a shot, and a lot of time you're going to tell yourself, oh, I knew it. It's always the same. On this hole or this type of shot, I shot on the right, or whatever, I missed this shot, I'm too short. And unconsciously, you get trapped in a very negative thinking pattern. And it's very hard to get out of it. So for me, it's all about the goldfish theory. You've heard it before. Yeah. It's all about, okay, fine, immediate feedback, move on, and we go to the next shot.
Right.
Very easy to say, but not easy to apply. But again, I'm convinced that this is really something you can train with awareness. It's for me that what I call the triple A. It's acceptance. I accept I made a bad shot. I'm aware of my emotion. I take action and I move on.
Yes.
And if you can systemize this thinking pattern and be very aware and very intentional with your internal dialogue, and okay, I missed a shot, but it's fine. Well, you have I think a much better foundation, and you can rely much more on your skills.
Right.
Yeah. Just to go further on the cognitive reframing. So I want to talk a little bit about perspective, because do you find when you play golf or day to day, you view things so differently because you compare it to jumping out of a plane, you compare it to jumping off a building, and things that may seem big to others or that we inflate, you're able to just look at them as smaller things, not as big of an issue because of that thing. Is that true? And if it is, or even if it's not, how can we use some of that perspective changes in our daily lives to improve our perspective, to improve our thought process around some of these things that are just every single day? Because you see it actually in golf, and Rick may agree, but you hear so many stories of golfers that may have recently had children, or golfers. I think there was a story where Rory McIlroy actually flew out to Haiti for the earthquake years ago, came back and he won the golf tournament. You hear the golfers have their children a week later, 2 weeks later, they're winning events. Now, I'm not saying that it's directly correlated, but I'm sure there's some impact that it has an effect on their perspective, and they come back with a completely different frame of mind. So do you see that with what you do, and how can we apply that to some of the smaller things that we come across in our days? Well,
first thing, I wish sometimes I had more perspective. Sometimes I get mad, and then of course it's like cognitive reframing. It's not what happened, it's how you frame it. It's all about resilience. It's all about letting go and framing it. Again, it's very easily said. It's not always, because sometimes you're so into it and you have so much expectation. It's all about expectation and radical acceptance. It's accepting. It's not always easy to accept, and telling yourself it is what it is, and I'm gonna move on, and I have to accept the situation. Yes, I think doing or having a discipline which is question of life and death gives a lot of perspective. But sometimes I can get mad when I'm missing a shot or a 3-footer, like you said in the beginning. But yeah, it's life is about perspective. Right. It's like the book I named before, The Subtle Art of,
right.
And it's really about detaching yourself completely from the outcome and almost not giving a shit.
Right.
Not, and it's radical acceptance. I think the more, and that's what I'm telling my son, the more you can accept your mishits, the better you will play.
Right. Definitely. I want to ask you a question on outcomes, because it's this thing that I'm torn with as a coach. Is we know if we improve processes, we'll get better results. That's kind of the idea. So we only focus about process, but I don't want people to shy away from the goal and the outcome that they want, because believe me, to get to the level you've become, that outcome required different work ethic than somebody who just, I don't know, jumps on a trampoline, right? I mean, it sounds silly, but there is a different outcome, which means there has to be a different result. So again, I'm torn where I want people to embrace an outcome as something that motivates them. They're looking forward to it. It pushes them. And yet the next sentence I may say, let's be detached from it and be in the process. So I'm still working on that as a coach. How do you balance that?
It's very important to have a final goal. And I like to call this a vision, or your North Star. You have a North Star, you have a certain direction. It's defining your direction. But at one point, I think it's even more important to put it on the side and to focus on what's happening right here, right now. And I really believe, again, I'm repeating myself, but it's coming down to the same thing all the time. The more you are immersed in the present moment, the more you can trust the future. Wow. And if you try to control the future, you basically lose every control on the present moment, and you lose everything. So it's interesting. And if you only think about the final outcome, you're putting a lot of pressures on your shoulders.
Love that.
So at one point you have to take a step, and you're much more agile if you focus on the process. If you make a mistake, no big deal. I'm taking a step back and I'm moving a little left or a little right, but still I know my North Star. And when people ask me, what are your goals? I don't have goals. I have a clear direction.
Interesting. But on that direction though, is there, are there measurable things that are along that vision though?
Yes, of course. You want to measure your progress. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Of course, you want to track it. I'm a data fan. I work with TrackMan all the time. And that's the only way to track your progress. But for me, it's a process.
Okay, so on that, because this is, again, in my industry, we have all this data-driven TrackMan and stuff like that. That's the way we measure progress, right? I'm saying, how do we measure mental progress? How do we measure our processes and how that's getting better, right? And I don't want to say what mine is because I think it's going to be similar, but how do you measure that?
Well, it's very tough. Like I said in the beginning, if you want to run a marathon or you want to go into triathlon or it's very measurable.
Right.
And I think that's why it's so popular in a way. Because if I run 5 times a week, that many miles, I know that after a few months, I'm going to be able to participate in an Ironman, or I call these the midlife crisis sports. It's like your last chance to be a bit good at something. Sorry, people, I had to tell this. If you start golf at 40, you're never going to be really good. You know it. You have to accept it. Sorry again, people, but that's the hard truth. No, what I want to say here is that your mental training and your mental strength and your emotional intelligence, it's not very tangible.
Right.
But you have to make time to reflect. You have to track your progress. I really like the idea of writing, journaling.
Yes.
Of debriefing your emotional state on the course.
Yes.
And it's not easy. It's tough.
Right.
It's really tough. Yeah, for sure. But I think it takes some time. And that's what I'm asking elite athletes write down how you felt. And even if you win, write it down. I was feeling that way, and you want to go back to this winning emotional well-being. And if you failed, or if you played like you had a really bad day, how did you feel? What was your pre-game routine? How did you arrive at the range? How did you sleep? And you want to systematize everything and put every chance. You know that, but I mean every chance. And I've read stuff about players listening to the same music all the time before starting a game. Music is great for the mind. Mm-hmm. So if you have a good playlist and you listen to this in your car, or this can be part of the pre-shot, not the pre-shot, but the pre-game routine.
Sure.
And it's different for everyone. Some people will putt for 30 minutes. Some people will drive for 30 minutes, whatever. Find your routine. Right. Find what's best for you. It's like sleeping. There's no one way to sleep. Some people need 5 hours. Some people need 10 hours. Test it. Curiosity. Be curious.
It comes back to self-awareness, like you spoke about right at the start of this conversation, because you ultimately need to determine what your optimal state is. In golf, people have different states. Colin Morikawa, very calm, very relaxed. a Tyrrell Hatton, complete other side of the spectrum. But they're both huge high performers. They're both hugely successful and great at what they do. So it's that awareness to understand what your optimal state is, and then also the self-awareness to understand how to prime your optimal state.
Yeah, exactly.
How to create your optimal state. So
how to optimize your brain and your mental awareness and everything, and your emotions. And every player or every human being has a different way of approaching things. Well, test and learn. It's all about testing and learning. Oh, that works. No, that doesn't. Fine, I'm gonna go back and yeah. There is no one technique that fits everyone. I think it's like a golf swing.
There's no question. And then I think knowing your causes and effect, and I think back to what I heard earlier from you is, the power of questions is part of the self-awareness. Some people, they want to just look at a golf shot, went there because, hey, my path number was 2 out this way and the club face was here, because it's easy to measure and it's easy to just blame my golf swing. Yet Hallam and I and you would say that the state we're in over the shot is going to have a direct correlation to how they swing it. So why don't we be asking ourselves questions like, what state was I in and how was I feeling, and what triggered that and what led to that? And some people, and I think I'm going back to vulnerability again, they're vulnerable when they start asking those questions because they're not sure what's going to pop up in that head. But the concrete stuff's easy to say, oh, I got to work on my swing. And what I love, and I thank you so much for today, is helping people understand that it's okay to experiment. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to have this immediate feedback and just try something else while still pushing yourself and having that vision moving forward. I'm loving it. I really appreciate your insights today.
Thank you very much. I sometimes I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I think the brain needs repetition as well. But there are a few like really important things that can, I think, help every golf player or even every human being.
Yes.
But yeah, it starts with self-awareness, curiosity, having the right mindset, and focus and trusting yourself. We haven't talked about self-confidence. It's also something you can work on. I think self-confidence, it's very funny, but it's inverted proportionally with fear of failure. The more you embrace failure, the higher your self-confidence is. Someone who is not accepting failure at all, you're gonna have a very low self-confidence. If you want to be certain of the final outcome, you want to control things you don't control at all. There are many examples, but so self-confidence, I think it starts with accepting failure, embracing failure, internal dialogue, intuition, visualization, and name it. But that's wonderful. Yeah,
that's so interesting, and we'll finish up in a second. But what you just said there,
I have time.
reminded me of something Michael Phelps actually says a lot about, and he calls it negative visualization. But he basically says, instead of always visualizing himself winning the races and it all going perfectly, he'll sometimes visualize himself completely messing up but still coming out on top. So essentially, he's training himself to believe he will be able to adapt. No matter what obstacles are thrown at him, he will still come out on top. Almost that anti-fragile identity. And that's kind of what you're talking about there. Self-confidence is built upon the fact that you believe you can adapt and still come out on top no matter what. So there is no fear of failure, because even if you do fail, you know that you'll find a way, you know you'll learn, you know you'll develop, and that you'll still win. So I love that.
Yeah, and it's weird to say, but in my sport, in my discipline, I totally accept the consequences. It's hard, but I accept that it can go wrong. And I think the day you don't accept this, that's the day you quit. So it's and I think basically again, to make a connection with golf and life, it's resilience. It's the better you can accept your mishits, and in life, the better you can accept when something goes wrong and move on. To make it simple, the more happy you go through life, and the more you enjoy everything. And I think on a golf course, it's the same. You accept your mishits and enjoy yourself. And
awesome.
Easy to say, always easy to apply.
I think,
but,
that's a great point to wrap up on, because having fun, enjoying yourself, none of this stuff, none of that high performance is possible without it. So it's almost like the core of everything we've spoke about.
We were talking about perspective, and sometimes I play with people I know. I usually play with friends and people I know, and they start complaining. Oh, the greens are slow, the sand is too hard, the fairway is not nice, it's too wind. And I said, hey, stop. We are alive, we're breathing, and we are on a golf course. Hey, so, there are people in 6 feet under who are not able to say that. That's perspective. And
Yes.
I think we should all go back to enjoying more. And
Yes.
and yeah, having fun.
Smiling.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
But
we're
it's-
having fun here.
Yeah. It's very simple, but believe me, if you go back to enjoying yourself, and you will play better.
Absolutely.
Whatever your level, whatever your age, whatever your goal, enjoy. And that's why I'm telling people in corporate or organizations when I'm speaking, hey, enjoy what you do. And if you don't, do something else. You're not a tree, you can move.
Love it. I heard you say that people call you crazy, but you said that crazy is not doing what you love. And I love that. I thought it's so true, because I guarantee so many people do say, you're crazy, man, you're crazy.
All the time.
Back on them and say, how's this crazy? I'm happy. I love what I do.
Yeah. I think what is success? It's very difficult to define success, whatever you do, and we all have different ambitions and life goals and so on. But I think it's being able to look back to your life and tell yourself, I did it. I was where I belong to be. I was aligned with my values. We said in the beginning, I think you said it, Rick, but a lot of players are defined by their scorecard. And a lot of people are defined by their job title. So the interesting question is, if you quit golf as a professional, if you are fired, if you quit your job, what do you stand for? What are your values as a human being? And where will you take them? You're not defined by a title.
Right.
You're not defined by a job. You're not defined. It's going a little bit beyond golf, but
Yes.
I think it's
It's all embedded in self-awareness. We keep saying it, but self-awareness.
Have the courage to ask yourself the right question. A lot of people are gliding on the surface of life without even knowing who they are. Confront yourself with your deepest motivation. There's a lot of social pressure. We live with what I call bullshit rules. A lot of rules from the past. And I think the last 2 years, there's the great resignation. A lot of people are trying to maybe look for other solutions. It's all, again, curiosity, reinventing yourself, staying relevant, and
Cedric,
wonderful.
Thank you so much. That was one of the most interesting conversations I've had, definitely. Just diving into a world that I have no knowledge of, but again, coming with curiosity and trying to understand how can I take some of the experiences you've been through, lessons you've learned, and apply it to my own life, to my own career. And everyone that's listening should do exactly the same thing. So thank you so much for that. Really enjoyed it. Cedric, where can all of our listeners, where can they find out more about you, your book, and all of the great work that you're doing?
My book, Dare to Jump. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. I wanted to tell Rick, I read your book as well, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of connections.
Yes.
A lot of connections. So amazing. It's good.
Thank you.
I'm on social media, mainly Instagram and LinkedIn. That's maybe more for corporate people, as I work a lot with organizations, as a speaker, as a consultant. And that's about it, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you again so much. And I know our paths are going to cross. You're going to come to the United States. We're going to play some golf.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make you so fearful of going against me. We'll see if those things really stack up now.
There you go. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I know you've received some incredible information. And if you would like to hear more, please subscribe. Rick, how can our listeners learn more about the Flowcode Golf Academy?
Are you a coach or a player? Well, I've created 2 free masterclasses. One for a coach to help you grow your mental game coaching business, and one for a player to master your mental game. Head over to www.flowcode.golf to gain free access now.